Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 177 based on novel. So let's start. Yuanwu continent, central region, in that dark and mysterious space, the strange mirror suddenly trembled violently at this moment. In the space, several pairs of lines of sight that could not identify the direction shot from the darkness in the space, looking full of expectation. Buzzing, buzzing. Suddenly, the space channel in the center of the mirror was suddenly twisted. Then, 3 human shadows were spit out one after another. Among the 3 figures, 2 of them were wrapped in black fog. They were the 2 mysterious strong men who set foot on the mainland, and the remaining one was a beautiful woman in a purple dress. This woman is Zuna. It's just a pity that in the process of crossing the space channel, Zuna had already fainted. At this time, a pretty face also looked extremely white and bloodless. Under the control of the 2 semi-imperial strong men, it is really difficult for Zuna to bear this pressure only by virtue of his strength. However, it was 3 people who came back. In the surrounding dark space, a few light sounds came out one after another. What's the matter with you? Where's the key? Where's the key you're looking for? In the dark, a gloomy voice of doubt spread. It's not hard to hear that there is a sense of anger in this voice. Big. Sir, we didn't find the key. Boom. In the black fog, they trembled and talked, but they didn't wait for words to fall. Then, an extremely powerful momentum came down from the sky. Their bodies were hit hard, and a loud bang hit the invisible void. Scarlet blood immediately spewed out of their mouths and quickly disappeared into the void in front of them. It was refined rapidly by a strange force. Big. Sir, the key is not in the angry continent. They were so frightened that they almost thought they had stepped into the gate of hell. After a moment, they quickly reacted. If they didn't make it clear earlier, they would really die. What? The key is not in the mainland. Where is it? The voice in the dark sounded particularly gloomy. The 2 people who had been seriously injured in the black fog were trembling and hurried to tell about what had happened on the angry continent, and the guy in the dark finally took back the momentum and authority released. So, now the key can not only be determined on Xiao Yan, fighting the mainland, but also gave birth to 3.5 emperors? It's only half emperor, but mole ants. It's not easy for me to kill him. Mole ants are mole ants, but it also depends on whether you can really kill him. Even if you want to kill him, there are still people staring at him. Once you expose the boy's identity and are protected by them in advance, it will be troublesome. In the dark, several hoarse voices mocked each other. The 2 semi-emperors took the opportunity to take a pill and quickly recovered their injuries. At the bottom of their hearts, they couldn't help but burst into a little joy. The adult once said to them that as long as they came back, they would be carefree in the future. This can let them remember clearly. According to what you said, the key is still on your body, and you didn't take it back. Suddenly, a powerful voice came out in this dark space. For a moment, the voice of mutual sarcasm the moment before swept away. The 2 semi-imperial strong men also clearly felt that their souls could not help trembling at the moment of the voice. They were both surprised and happy at the bottom of their hearts. They didn't know what would happen next, but they knew that their hard days had finally come to an end. Do you want to use her to threaten Xiao Yang and hand over the key? The voice came again. The 2 guys who boasted that they were smart quickly nodded, but they didn't know that they were full of sneers and sarcasm in the surrounding darkness. Good idea. The voice was indifferent. When they heard the speech, they were overjoyed and quickly asked, Sir, what you promised us? Do what you say. From now on, you will ignore everything in the world and be carefree. This time, the 2 people clearly heard the emotional changes in the voice. Suddenly, they quickly had a chill at the bottom of their hearts, which spread to their whole body like an icy lake. Finally, it turned into endless panic. Bang! Then, with a low explosion, their bodies exploded at the same time and turned into a blood mist. Soon, they were swallowed up by this space. As long as you die, everything will be done. You are also carefree. In this way, you have fulfilled your wish for you. In the dark, The master of the voice muttered to himself. A pair of scarlet eyes could emit scarlet light like blood in the dark, but finally, they closed quietly. As for the others, they seem to have been used to this result for a long time, and they can't be more clear about that person's means. Yuanwu continent, the western regions, outside the Xiaolin Mountains. In a twinkling of an eye, a week has passed since the last battle in the Xiaolin Mountains. Until today, Xiao Yang left the Xiaolin Mountains and went straight to the west, where the western wasteland is located. As early as the beginning, Tianying said to Xiao Yang that there are 3 halls in Tianjue ancient tomb. Among the 3 halls, the cultivation inheritance of Tianjue master is stored respectively. In addition, there is the inheritance of the origin of Tianjue master's soul. What Xiao Yang cares about most is the last one. The cultivation skills of Tianjue master are determined by the source. At the beginning, Xiao Yang didn't care too much about his name, but now that he knows that Gui Yuanjue is related to Xiao Xian, Xiao Yang must go to the ancient tomb on this day anyway. Although it is rumored that the 3 famous fighting skills of Master Tianjue must be present in order to open the Tianjue ancient tomb, Xiao Yang hopes to take a chance. Xiao Yang remembers that Murong Qianqian once told him that a place called Shaheipu was an important area connecting Xiaolin region and Shihuang region. If you want to enter Shihuang region, you must pass through it. However, before that, Xiao Yang wanted to go to Yangcheng again. After all, Jin Yaro is still there. She hasn't seen her for several years, and she doesn't know how she will feel when she sees herself now. Xiao Yang thought of this, and a slightly expectant smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. A week later, Xiao Yang, dressed in a black robe, came to the outside of Yang City again. Standing outside the city, Xiao Yang looked up at the prosperous city in front of him. A relaxed smile could not help but appear on his face. After 5 years, when he came here again, everything here seemed unchanged, but he didn't know whether Jin Yaro was the same as before. A thought flashed in his heart, and Xiao Yang stopped staying and strode towards the expert of Yang City. According to the route in memory, after a while, Xiao Yang came to an antique building. On the plaque, there were 3 big characters of Chanyafang written with iron painting and silver hook. Seeing this, Xiao Yang's smile on the corners of his lips was even worse. Some scenes a few years ago could not help but emerge in his mind. In front of the 1000 Medicine Workshop, the door is open, and the flow of people indicates this hot business. As the largest shop in Yangcheng, the daily profit of the 1000 Medicine Workshop is also the top in Yangcheng. It is reasonable to have so many people. After entering the 1000 Medicine Workshop, Xiao Yang first found the steward in the workshop. The latter recognized Xiao Yang at the first sight. However, because of Jin Yaro's special instructions, Xiao Yang's identity was not discovered by outsiders. According to what the steward said, Xiao Yang learned that Jin Yaro was not in the Qianqian medicine workshop. This situation has been continuous for a long time. According to the steward's guess, Jin Yaro should be in her own other garden. As for why it is often so, the old man didn't say much. He just stared at Xiao Yang for a long time. He seemed to know and didn't know anything. In this regard, Xiao Yang didn't ask more. Since others didn't want to say more, of course, he had no reason to ask more. He had to turn his head and go to another garden in Jinyaro in the Yangcheng city. After a short moment, Xiao Yang came here. He thought a little in his heart and didn't break in directly. Instead, he thought a little. The soul in the middle of his eyebrows trembled slightly, and an invisible soul force spread out and quickly spread to the whole other garden. After several breaths, Xiao Yang's soul power was locked in a small courtyard. The courtyard is not big. Several perennial green trees are planted. There are stone tables and chairs in the courtyard, and flowers and plants are everywhere. There is a pond in one corner of the courtyard. On the blue stone beside the pond, at this moment, a beautiful red-skirt woman is sitting here cross-legged. With the operation of internal skills, between heaven and earth, a stream of energy will gather uncontrollably towards the red-skirt woman. Looking at this woman's appearance, she is the owner of the 1000 Medicine Workshop, Jin Yao. In 5 years, she did not leave any trace on Jin Yao's beautiful cheek, but made her more mature. In addition, her strength, after 5 years, has finally successfully entered the 3-star fighting emperor. Even if she looks at the western regions, She can be called a powerful party and few people can move her. Seeing the latter sitting on the blue stone, Xiao Yan couldn't help but be slightly stunned. That position was the place where he had sat and practiced. Who? At the moment when Xiao Yang's mood fluctuated, Jin Yarrow, sitting on the blue stone in the courtyard at the moment, also found the latter's soul exploration in an instant. Although there was only such a moment, it also made the latter feel a great threat. She can spread her soul power to her without her noticing. From this point, the strength of the latter will never be under Jin Yarrow itself, and it is very likely that it will be stronger than her. Is it the old immortal of the Zhao family who broke through? Jin Yarrow's heart tightened slightly. If it was that person, it would be in trouble. On the other hand, Xiao Yang took back Jin Yarrow's soul power at the moment he found it. He couldn't help laughing. With his current strength, it is impossible for Jin Yarrow to easily find his soul power. This is because the mood in his heart changed slightly and produced a slight fluctuation, which made Jin Yarrow find his existence. However, since it has been found, Xiao Yang naturally has no need to continue to hide. Hehe, I haven't seen you for 5 years. I don't know how Sister Jin Yarrow is doing. However, just as Jin Yarrow looked around with a dignified face, a clear laugh suddenly came over the courtyard, and then Xiao Yang, dressed in a black robe, suddenly appeared in the courtyard. Xiao Yang, who appeared as a thief, shocked Jin Yaojiao's body. She flashed like a conditioned reflex to the opposite of Xiao Yang. The fighting spirit in her body also ran quickly at this moment. However, the next moment, Jin Yarrow's delicate body was suddenly shocked, and the whole person's mind was violently stirred up. A pair of beautiful eyes stared at Zhong Qingjuan's face of the black-robed man in front of him. In his mind, he kept recalling the words just spit out from the black-robed man's mouth like a bell. A few seconds later, Jin Yarrow's eyes quickly turned red, and a thin stream of water vapor couldn't help rotating in her eyes. You guy! Still willing to come back? Finally, Jin Yarrow couldn't help but show a wronged expression and shouted to Xiao Yang with half a cry. Hey, Sister Jin Yarrow, have you had a good time in the past 5 years? You are worried to death. Jin Yarrow cut Xiao Yang hard and said angrily. In this regard, Xiao Yang smiled. To tell the truth, he suddenly didn't want to rest for so long. He had to do so just to break through his strength. More than half a month ago, I heard that the 4 families sent people to break into the Shaolin Mountains. We all guessed whether they would all go for you, but it should not be that you are safe and sound. Seeing that Xiao Yang came back intact, the big stone at the bottom of Jin Yarrow's heart finally fell heavily. A breath grew in her mouth and said with a smile. After all, the 4 families sent out a lot of people this time. If such a large-scale action was only to catch a half-emperor level Xiao Yang, how could he appear in front of him now? I'm the one they want to brush, but they're unlucky and I'll stay there forever. Hearing Jin Yarrow's words, Xiao Yang scratched his head and said with a light face. Jin Yarrow was stunned when she said this. She was shocked and suspicious at the same time. Jin Yarrow naturally understood what Xiao Yang said to stay there forever, but how could he do it with Xiao Yang's strength? You said you left them there forever. Did they really go to catch you? Xiao Yang smiled and nodded lightly to show his affirmation. The leaders among them are all 4-star duty. If you can leave them there, isn't your cultivation? Without waiting for Jin Yarrow's words to fall, Xiao Yang's heart moved. After a while, a faint momentum and pressure quickly spread from his body. Although this pressure did not pose any threat to Jin Yarrow in front of him, it was enough to let Jin Yarrow know his current cultivation level only by virtue of this pressure. This is you. 5-star fighting emperor. For a moment, Jin Yarrow couldn't help but look shocked on her pretty face. The shock in her heart was even more unspeakable. How on earth did you do it? In 5 years, you have directly crossed from 6-star and half-emperor to 5-star fighting emperor. This is equivalent to a whole order. Jin Yarrow stared at Xiao Yang in front of her with a shocked face. Even though she had clearly perceived the breath of Xiao Yang, she still couldn't easily believe that the strength of the black-robed man in front of her has really reached the level of 5-star fighting emperor. This is incredible. However, after Xiao Yang's explanation, Jin Yarrow realized that it was no wonder Xiao Yang's strength would advance by leaps and bounds. It turned out that it was because he swallowed the different fire. Tut tut, strange fire is really amazing. It can improve your strength so much at one time. If you have more strange fire, won't your strength be improved immediately and become a peerless strong man directly? Jin Yaromai looked at Xiao Yang with a little excitement in her eyes. It seemed that the peerless strong man was her. Hearing this, Xiao Yang shook his head with a bitter smile and sighed. Swallowing strange fire is not as easy as you think. I spent a lot of effort to swallow the bone spirit cold fire, but I almost lost my life in the process. If I hadn't had some luck and grasp, I wouldn't live now. As soon as she said this, Jin Yaro was silent. Xiao Yang paused and continued. Besides, I don't know how difficult and dangerous it is to find different fires. As far as I know, I only know that there is still a different fire in the northern region. As for others, I don't even know the exact location of the different fire. I can only be sure that there must be a different fire in the northern region, yes. The feeling of self-confidence at the end of Xiao Yang's words stunned Jin Yao. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang was so sure, but she didn't know. For this news, Xiao Yang was not sure, but he believed in Jiuyu's words. If the latter said yes, it must be. What are you going to do now? Go to the north to find strange fire? After returning to her senses, Jin Yaro frowned lightly, with a slight sense of reluctance in her tone, and asked carefully. I plan to go to the western wasteland first. There, I also have something to get back, no matter what. What you said should not be the little girl named Murong Chanshan. Jin Yaro's eyes turned and she didn't expect to say this sentence inexplicably. At the moment when the words were spit out, her pretty face couldn't help but show a crimson color. She wanted to swallow the words she just spit out. Hearing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but be a little stunned. If Jin Yaro didn't say it, he might really forget the little girl. It was Jin Yaro. When he saw Xiao Yang's stunned appearance, he thought he cared about what he had just said, so he hurried to explain. His voice was a little flustered. Don't get me wrong. I just happened to hear it at the beginning. Who told you two to talk behind me? The voice was not loud, but in the end, it was inexplicably haunted by a smell of bitterness. Xiao Yang smiled lightly and didn't care about it. He immediately raised his eyes, looked at Jin Yaro and said with a smile. Sister Jin Yaro doesn't have to think about it. What I mean is a very important thing for me. It's not a person. Moreover, it has nothing to do with Murong Chanshan, and it has nothing to do with one of my elders. At this point, Xiao Yang said no more, looked up at the sky and was full of expectations. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Jin Yaro's pretty face was slightly stunned. Even when she saw Xiao Yang's stunned expression, this expression did not contain any children's feelings, but a kind of respect. As Xiao Yang said, it was one of his elders. Jin Yao, get out and die. However, at this time, an earth-shaking drink came from above the burning city, which made the city below a slight vibration. At that time, the people in the city were shocked. Their eyes looked like spotlights at the place where the voice came from. As far as they could see, they saw an old man in grey robe standing on the void. His muddy old eyes scanned back and forth in the city below. In a twinkling of an eye, they had determined the location of Jin Yao. Jin Yao. 3 years. I've been waiting for 3 years. Today is the day when you pay for your blood. At the moment of seeing Jin Yao, an extremely powerful force came out of the old man's body, turned into an invisible energy storm, and severely pressed Jin Yao in the city below. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang immediately frowned. The fighting spirit in his body flowed rapidly and wanted to suppress it. But then, between heaven and earth, another powerful breath was born in the sky, which strongly suppressed the momentum of the old man in grey robe in the sky. This sudden situation also stunned Xiao Yang. When he turned his head and looked, he was surprised, because the person who made the move was Dong Chuan, the president of Tianyun Auction House. Tianyun Auction House has always been in a neutral state and won't intervene in the disputes between any forces. How can he do it for you? Hey, this uncle doesn't like you, Sister Jin Yao. Frown a little. Soon, Xiao Yang laughed at Jin Yao with a smile on his face. The latter came forward with a red face when he heard his speech. The jade hand pinched Xiao Yang's waist. Suddenly, the look on Xiao Yang's face was twisted fiercely, and he cried out for mercy. "You dare to talk nonsense!" Jin Yarrow scolded bitterly. Then she glanced across her cheek and looked at the grey-robed old man above the sky. In her beautiful eyes, the cold light gradually condensed. "Come on, go up and have a look." After returning to his mind, Xiao Yang also put away his playful mind. In the light voice of Jin Yarrow, he grabbed the latter's jade hand and moved his body, which swept up the air in an instant. President Dong Chuan, what do you mean? You stopped me from killing this woman 3 years ago to avenge my son. Are you going to stop it again 3 years later?" In the sky, seeing that Dong Chuan once again blocked his action, the wrinkled old face of the grey-robed old man immediately showed an angry look. "I believe that if he was not afraid of the strength of the person in front of him, I'm afraid he would have rushed up long ago. Zhao Mian, your son's death was an accident. Why do you bother with Jin Yarrow? I withdrew you 3 years ago. I just hope you can reflect on yourself, but I didn't expect you to be stubborn 3 years later." Dong Chuan looked at the grey-robed old man opposite and said solemnly, "What a bullshit. My son died because of this woman. The servant who returned at that time clearly said that it was this woman who caught up with my son all the way. But you also said that your son was chasing a man. Maybe it was because of him that your son died. How could it be? Just a half-emperor, how could it be my son's opponent?" In the sky, Dong Chuan and the old man quarreled with each other one by one. At this time, the two figures strolled up the void like lightning and stood between them. "Hihi, is your son Zhao Xian? Who are you?" Hearing Xiao Yang's words, the old man in grey robe immediately replied in a deep voice. "What you said just now is right. Your son did die at my hands." Ignoring Zhao Mian's words, Xiao Yang smiled faintly and said it carelessly. With the falling of Xiao Yang's words, Zhao Mian and Dong Chuan above the sky solidified their faces. "Who are you?" In the sky, the grey-robed old man stared at the black-robed young man who suddenly appeared in front of him with a pair of turbid old eyes. Hearing the words spit out by the latter, the expression on his old face was both surprised and angry. "Hehe, Master Zhao is really old. People often forget things. At the beginning, you recognized my identity without showing up. Now, when you meet, you ask who I am." In the void, Xiao Yang held Jin Yarrow's white and tender jade hand in one hand. Under the latter's shy eyes, he smiled coldly at the old man in grey robe, and his eyes were full of ridicule. The old man in front of him was the 2-star emperor fighting strongman of the Zhao family that Xiao Yang met in Sulan City. But at the beginning, he was at the critical juncture of breaking through the 3-star emperor fighting, and had no time to pay attention to Xiao Yang. Just now he was able to leave, but unexpectedly, he would be Zhao Xian's father. If Zhao Mian had not mentioned that his son was chasing a semi-emperor and Jin Yarrow was chasing and blocking him, Xiao Yang might have never thought of this. Xiao Yang. At this time, Dong Chuan behind Xiao Yang suddenly lost his voice and screamed, and his voice was full of excitement. He also heard about the 4 families sending people to break into the Shaolin Mountains half a month ago. At that time, he thought of Xiao Yang for the first time, but he didn't expect to see him again in Yang City half a month later. "Hehe, brother Dong Chuan, I haven't seen you for 5 years. How are you?" Hearing Dong Chuan scream, Xiao Yang turned his head with a smile and showed a warm smile on his face. The cold appearance of the previous moment was completely gone. "It's really you." Seeing Xiao Yang with his own eyes surprised Dong Chuan even more. 1 moment ago, he was still on a serious face, and then he showed an excited look. The 180-degree reversal in this moment even surprised the people in the square city. However, when they heard the name shouted from Dong Chuan's mouth, they immediately reacted. No wonder this young man in black can make strong people like Dong Chuan cry out. It turned out that it was Xiao Yang who was famous in the western regions 5 years ago. Xiao Yang, he is Xiao Yang. It is said that he was arrested by the 4 families 5 years ago. How could he suddenly appear here again? What died? At the beginning, he fled into the mountains surrounded by the 4 families. In order not to be caught, he hid for 5 years before he dared to come out. Yes, I heard that half a month ago, the 4 families sent people close to the Shaolin Mountains. Most of them went to catch Xiao Yang, but they didn't expect that Xiao Yang had escaped. He was really lucky. For a time, the city below was noisy, and all kinds of comments were buzzing over the city, just like swarms of bees attacking. However, Xiao Yang on the sky ignored it at this time. Dong Chuan came forward with a frown and his eyes swept over the dark crowd in the city below, showing a trace of apology in his eyes. Brother Xiao Yang, this. It doesn't hurt. Let him go. Xiao Yang smiled carelessly when he saw this. Up to now, as long as the four main doors are not united, it is difficult to pose too much threat to him. Last time in Shalin Mountains, Yi Luotian seized the opportunity just because he focused on the people of the four families, one-on-one. Even if he is not the opponent of any of the four major departments, Xiao Yang is confident that he has complete self-protection. Therefore, whether his identity is exposed or not is no longer important to him. Seeing Xiao Yang's confident appearance, Dong Chuan was also skeptical. Then his eyes turned and looked at Zhao Mian again. At this time, after hearing Dong Chuan's words, the flesh on an old face also couldn't help a burst of violent convulsions. He didn't expect that Xiao Yang, who was first revealed by him and then chased and killed by Zhao Xian, would appear here so coincidentally and have a relationship with his Zhao family again. Feeling the eyes of Xiao Yang and Zhao Mian felt a little nervous. Not long ago, he broke through the late stage of the three-star fight against the Emperor, and even came to Yangcheng murderously as soon as he left the pass. The purpose was to kill Jin Yarrow and avenge his dead son, but what he never thought was that it would be this scene in the end. Zhao Mian, your son was cruel and ruthless. He pursued Xiao Yang maliciously for the reward offered by the four main doors, and finally killed himself. This is his own fault. In this continent, greed without beginning and end always has to pay a price. Your son is the best proof. Jin Yarrow took a step forward and came to Xiao Yang. My Mao stared at Zhao Mian opposite and said in a dark tone. Unreasonable. Xiao Yang, you killed my son. Today, I will sacrifice your life to him. Hearing Jin Yarrow's words, Zhao Mian twisted his face and stared at Xiao Yang with fierce eyes. As long as he had a chance, Dong Chuan would stop him today, and he would kill Xiao Yang forcibly. When the voice fell, Zhao Mian's body was shocked and his breath was agitated. The grey robe he was wearing was windless and automatic. An extremely powerful momentum also gushed out of his body and turned into an invisible energy storm, which quickly spread over the burning city. Zhao Mian, you. Brother Dong Chuan, let me do it myself. Seeing Zhao Mian like this, Dong Chuan immediately frowned. With the strength of Zhao Mian's 3 stars fighting the Emperor in the later stage, how could Xiao Yang be his opponent? But just when Dong Chuan wanted to come forward, Xiao Yang smiled faintly and stopped it with one hand. Immediately, in the slightly worried eyes of the latter, he took 2 steps forward and looked at Zhao Mian opposite. Behind him, Jin Yarrow looked at Zhao Mian with a mocking face, and a trace of disdain appeared in her beautiful eyes. Seeing this, Dong Chuan couldn't help frowning, showing a suspicious look on his face, saying, Brother Xiao Yang doesn't seem to be a man of bravado, but what did he do? Cluck, President, watch it. You'll know it right away, and the expression on that guy's face. Wait a minute, it'll be very wonderful. Without directly answering Dong Chuan's questions, Jin Yarrow pursed her red lips and looked at Xiao Yang with a smile. There was a bright light in her beautiful eyes, like pride. Almost at the same time, Zhao Mian's terrorist momentum, which belongs to the later stage of the 3-star fighting Emperor, is also like a storm. It seems that the latter wants to completely suppress Xiao Yang by means of coercion alone. Xiao Yang, I will avenge my son today. Die. Zhao Mian's face was cold and powerful. He fell hard on Xiao Yang's head, just like an invisible mountain, with terrible momentum. However, Xiao Yang was still calm and did not show any mood fluctuations because of the momentum and pressure on his head. Until the next moment, when the threat fell, Xiao Yang suddenly raised his black eyes. For a while, a fierce and unparalleled invisible momentum was like a sharp sword. In an instant, he cut off the momentum on his head, and then his dark eyes fell on Zhao Mian. The chill in his eyes almost turned into substance. In an instant, Zhao Mian felt a deep chill all over his body, just like being in the ice cellar for thousands of years. At the same time, Dong Chuan, who was behind Xiao Yang, had a sudden change in his face at this moment. In the sky above Yangcheng, Xiao Yang just looked at Zhao Mian with a look. He suddenly broke Zhao Mian's momentum. It was like a sword cutting iron like mud, cutting off the duckweed on the water without any ripples. All this seemed so logical. However, at the same time of this scene, all the people in Yangcheng, the sky and the earth, almost except Jin Yao, were stunned and fixed in place. Their eyes were filled with a look of horror, staring at the black-robed figure above the sky. Everyone's faces were unbelievable. The appearance of this scene was unimaginable. The imposing manner of a 3-star emperor fighting strong man was suddenly cut by his eyes. This is the 3-star fighting emperor, that is, in the whole western region, they are all people standing at the top of the pyramid. Looking at the whole western region, there are not no people who can compete with it, but they are also a very few. But what they dare not imagine is that Xiao Yang seems to be only 1.5 emperors. Xiao Yang disappeared for 5 years, which impressed these people, but he always stayed 5 years ago. Indeed, Xiao Yang 5 years ago was just a 6.5-star emperor. With such strength, he could not be an opponent in the face of a strong man in the later period of 3-star fighting emperor. However, 5 years, which seems very short but seems long, seems nothing in the eyes of these self-proclaimed strong people, but for Xiao Yang, it is enough to change a lot of things. For example, now, his accomplishments have jumped from 6.5-star emperor 5 years ago to a strong man in the middle of 5-star fighting emperor. Such a big contrast is really incredible. No wonder their faces show such an expression. As for Zhao Mian at the moment, his old face was also stunned. With his mouth wide open, it seemed that the whole chin was about to dislocate. A pair of deeply sunken old eyes suddenly protruded outward, and the 2 eyeballs bulged outward, as if they were about to fall out of the orbit. The muscles on the dark old face are tight and stiff like sculpture. Cold sweat flows down from the temples uncontrollably. The breath at the tip of the nose seems to be stagnant at this moment. The whole person looks like a dead corpse, which looks quite frightening. Xiao Yang. Brother Xiao Yang. Your accomplishments. Not long ago, I broke through the middle stage of the 5-star fighting emperor with good luck, but it's still a lot worse than brother Dong Chuan. Hearing the shocked words from behind, Xiao Yin's face showed a smile, a harmless look of human and livestock. Where is the Senleng Susha of the previous moment? You guy, the speed of cultivation is really terrible. It's only 5 years. You have jumped from 6.5-star emperor to 5-star fighting emperor. Tut, I don't know how you cultivate. Hearing Xiao Yang's acknowledgement, Dong Chuan couldn't help but curl his mouth, his eyes swept back and forth on Xiao Yang, and said with a look of admiration. Just a fluke. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang smiled again and scratched his head, but he didn't explain much. Dong Chuan didn't ask much when he heard such vague words. He had to praise a few words one after another before he took back his eyes. 5-star fighting emperor. Middle stage. With the words in Xiao Yang's mouth, not only Dong Chuan, but also Zhao Mian, who is standing on the void at the moment, felt endless panic at this moment. No matter what he thought, in 5 years, Xiao Yang's strength has changed from a 6.5-star emperor to a 5-star fighting emperor. There are few strong people at this level, even if they look at the whole Western language. The most frightening thing for Zhao Mian is that if he wants to kill Xiao Yang with his cultivation at the moment, it's easy. Although he is a strong man in the fight against the emperor, if he is really compared, he, an old man in the late 3-star fight against the emperor, cannot be the opponent of Xiao Yang, a strong man in the middle of the 5-star fight against the landlord. The gap between the strong and the strong is as big as a gap, which is completely unmatched by the strong and the half-emperor. Although you are a strong man fighting against the emperor, if there is a gap between cultivation, just this is enough for the other party to suppress you. Generally speaking, a strong man in the middle of the 3-star duty will never be the opponent of a strong man in the later stage of the 3-star duty, not to mention facing the strong man in the 4-star and 5-star duty. Therefore, with Zhao Mian's strength, he naturally has no courage to face Xiao Yang, who has reached the middle of the 5-star duty. Therefore, after seeing Xiao Yang's terrible move, Zhao Mian's heart has sprouted retreat. The battle of the strong, even if it is just a face-to-face meeting, can express a lot of things. From the look of Xiao Yang just now, the battle that has not yet begun is actually over. Master Zhao, I don't know if you're going to continue to fight now. If you like, I won't mind. I'm afraid your Zhao family will be removed from the western regions from now on. How dare you threaten me? Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Zhao Mion's face suddenly showed anger. Xiao Yang sneered and said, "If you want something direct, I can choose not to threaten you." At the moment when Xiao Yang uttered his words, Xiao Yang flexed his fingers, and a fierce fighting spirit suddenly shot out of Xiao Yang's fingertips, like an arrow, with lightning speed. In a twinkling of an eye, he had come to Zhao Mion. When the latter saw this, his face suddenly turned pale, and he hurried back in panic. Finally, the fighting spirit disappeared into the void and disappeared in a flash. But Rao was so, but it still surprised Zhao Mion. If you don't want to die, it's still time to turn around and disappear in front of me within 10 breaths. If you don't leave, don't blame me for being cruel. Xiao Yang's face returned to indifference again. Facing the people in front of him, he had no compassion in his heart. The reason why he didn't kill him was that there was no need. If you put it in the past, the 3-star fighting emperor is indeed a trouble, but now, the 3-star fighting emperor is nothing in front of him. Whether he stays or not, there is no change. He has the ability to kill Zhao Mion easily today, and he disdains to care about it in the future. Of course, if the old man insists on his own way, Xiao Yang won't mind giving him a ride. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2. That's enough. I'll just go. But remember, it's not over yet. In the twinkling of an eye, 10 breath is coming, and Zhao Mion's heart is becoming more and more nervous. Until the last moment, he didn't dare to stay any longer. He quickly turned around and left in the direction of coming. However, in the twinkling of an eye, he has disappeared in the sight of everyone. At the same time, the indifferent expression on his face also changed rapidly. The moment he turned around, he had recovered a warm appearance, an approachable appearance, which was very different from the previous moment. This video will end here.